So, as I was saying, welcome to the Power Platform Meetup, Mumbai chapter, powered by D365 Champs. I apologize for the inconvenience caused by the link, Teams meeting link. We will look at how you can connect to D365 Champs. Who is D365 Champs as a community? We will look at some news updates and upcoming events. And then we will have our session for today, which is by Andrew Lee, getting started with PCF. This is not the exact one, but that will be shared soon with you. But it will get you started with Power Apps Component Framework. In terms of D365 Champs as a community, it's your local community. The idea it was ideated back in 2018. So community leads realized the need of a local community in Southeast Asia. In 2019, 10 leads or more, they teamed up and started the first chapter in Singapore. Number of leads grew. Champs went global with expansion in many countries. Today, we have members and leads in Singapore, Malaysia, South Africa, UK, India, Philippines, Vietnam, Germany, US, Australia, New Zealand, and many more countries. We have a LinkedIn following of 5,000 plus, Kaizala membership of 700 plus, and there are a lot of future initiatives coming up, which will be shared to you on all social media channels we have got. So do connect to one of these channels, be it Twitter, Kaizala, or LinkedIn. There's a QR code on the screen. You can scan it if you're not on your mobile. Also, if you would like to speak in one of our Power Platform meetups, you can scan this code, or you can go to any browser and type tiny.cc/D365Champs meetup and fill up the form, and we'll be in touch with you shortly. With that, I'll come to some news and updates. Microsoft has acquired Softomotive, which is an RPA, robotic process automation company. CDS is now Dataflex Pro. In terms of update, Win automation is now available with UI flows. Wave 2 2020 details are available now as PDF on docs.microsoft.com, and most features will be in public preview early August. In terms of upcoming events, Power Virtual Hour will be happening towards the end of August, and just stay connected with one of our channels to get the dates and exact topic of that. With that, I will ask Deepesh to welcome Andrew and share some thoughts. Deepesh, you there?
Yeah, of course I'm there, and I have been sorry guys, I've been having this dual responsibility today, but I wanted nobody to, in a community, we do not want like Prashant and as well as Andrew, Kuldeep, and there are other leads out here. Nobody wants that somebody to be missing, so I was there. So it took me like a 20-second delay to start. So I would like to welcome Andrew. Andrew has been a great contributor to PCF community right from the start, when PCF was born, right? Even before that a bit. And welcome to the Power Platform Meetup, Andrew. And thank you for taking out the time for the session. I know this is a weekend. Thank you for doing that for us. And he has been working with this since the launch, so you can know how much he would know about PCF, right? So that's a great learning session you guys are going to have. Today in the audience, we have a mix of audience, including technical folks, students, freshers, and professionals. Some of us professionals have been around with Dynamics for as long as 14, 15 years, and others are just starting their career, and there are students also on this call. So it's really the mixed audience, including citizen developers, real developers who are empowering this low-code, no-code platform. I would now request you, Andrew, to please introduce yourself and share your screen so that we can enjoy your session. Thank you.
Look, thanks very much for a really warm welcome. It's a privilege to be here today. So let me know if you can see my screen. I'll get straight into it.
Yep, we can.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Look, a little bit about myself. My name's Andrew Lee. I'm based out of Adelaide, Australia. As a day job, I work for KPMG. I lead the Global Centre of Excellence with a couple other people here at KPMG. So day-to-day, Power Platform is my thing. also a solutions architect and part of the MVP community. I'll put some links to my socials. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'll catch up with you guys online. So with that, today's agenda is around PCF. And first of all, for those of you who are new to PCF, I'll be going through what is PCF, and then showing some of the cool things that the community are doing right now. And then I'll walk you through building your first PCF control. So I assume most of you are pretty familiar with, some, rudimentary, like coding languages. So there'll be a little bit of assumed knowledge, but it's not too strenuous, okay? And then I'll talk a little bit about React and why React is important for building out complex applications in PCF. And then I've got something special to share around the future of PCF. All right. So I've been involved with PCF from the beginning. In terms of where PCF has come, it's come a massively long way, and they've really listened to a lot of the feedback that the community has given around that and built this really great framework. So what is PCF first of all? Whenever you're using Power Apps, whether it's a Canvas application, whether it's a model application, you're more than likely using a series of controls, and those controls allow you to interact with the app, okay? And that is a component within Canvas and model. Simply put, that's what it is, okay? So it could either be bound to data or it could be not bound to data as well. And the idea behind it is that they will trigger particular events. So let's just think you've got a button, right? You can trigger a flow, you can trigger a call to a web service, those sorts of things. So there are actions attached to these components as well. And then the other thing is you can configure some of these properties. You might be able to set the width, you might be able to set the color, those sorts of things. So that's pretty much component in a nutshell. Probably don't really need to go into more detail around that. So the PCF framework, like I was saying, was actually born probably just prior to 2018, right? When there was a need to actually build our own components, right? So that we can really extend what's available out of the box. We'll have to, we'll be able to introduce our own components. And so they went into private preview in around 2018, right? And then they opened it up to a small group of people just to have a look at it. I was one of these individuals that had a first look at it, and I thought, okay, this is actually a pretty good direction. It needs a little bit of work around the tooling and some of these other aspects, but it was actually a really good path forward for us to build controls, because prior to this we're actually just building on web resources, okay? So in 2019 they re-released it. There was a second private preview and we all got on board, and it was fantastic. It was initially available for model driven apps, and it came with a series of tool sets that made your life easier when you're building out these applications. And then in September they released, experimentally released support for Canvas apps. So now when you're building out a really cool mobile or a tablet app in Canvas, you could actually build your own controls and then let citizen developers use them. So how cool was that? And then they went general availability in 2019. So that means we could roll it out to production environments. So it's actually a very robust, very mature framework now. And what's coming out in 2020 and beyond is actually pretty significant. So we talked a little bit about, you would have read the release notes around support for portals. Okay, I'll go into a bit of detail towards the end of the session. So that's pretty much PCF, the timeline, the history behind PCF. And then I want to talk to you about some of the things that PCF offers, right? So it's actually targeted to professional developers. So if you know web development languages, HTML, CSS, those sorts of things, perfect. That would be great for you to be able to get on board and start building out your own controls, right? And the idea behind the framework is that you could build a control and you could reuse it, right? And you can use it in your Canvas, model, and in the future portals, right? It does come with a really advanced set of tool sets, right? And that's known as the command line interface. And that allows you to build, it allows you to deploy, it allows you to test. There's an inbuilt test harness in there. And it's really sophisticated because once you actually change something in your code, it will watch for that change it will detect that change, and then it will show you that change in real time. So when you're building, that's extremely important to be able to iterate very quickly when you're building. All right. And most importantly is that it's based off modern web design patterns, right? These are patterns that are used more broadly within web design industry. So things like TypeScript, it's a marked up language of JavaScript. It actually is the basis of PCF, as well as having access to libraries like React for advanced controls, AngularJS, and also Office Fabric for that nice Office Microsoft look and feel, okay? So in terms of what people are doing out there today, right, I always point people to this particular site. It's a PCF gallery. So if you haven't seen it yet, this is great. Like all of the community has really jumped onto the PCF gallery and just started contributing all of their cool controls that they've built out, right? So my dear friend Guido Pre is also part of the MVP community. He's built out this gallery, he maintains it, and he's done a fantastic job. And there's 268 controls today on that gallery that you can pick up. And I recommend you pick it up and have a look at the code behind it, right? And understand how these controls were built out. And I'll give you a few examples now. So this is one of the very first controls that I built out. And that is, it's really just a very simple field that's actually, it's an integer bound field that updates a progress bar. It's pretty self-explanatory if you see the video here. And that's actually really simple to achieve. Like I did it in probably about half a dozen lines of code with a bit of CSS, okay? So it just shows that you could build something very small, just as an example to start off with. And then I'll show you some of the more sophisticated example. So Tay, someone that I've been following very closely on social media, and she's done this fantastic control that connects out to Graph API that retrieves the presence of people within an organization. Okay, so you can see whether or not they're online, and then you can talk to them and those sorts of stuff. So it doesn't have to be just within the realms of your Power App. You can actually connect out to other services. Okay. And then we've got over here, this is a great example by Michael, and it's around sentiment analysis. So he has actually wrote something in the text messages, I hate rats, and it actually does interpretation of what that text has actually said, and then gives you a negative or a positive sentiment out of that, right? So that's another great use of external services within a PCF. Another one, a great example of what you can do from a UI perspective. This is something that's built on React by Brian Greger, and it's actually taking some information around membership levels and displaying it on a form. And I've come across this sort of scenario all the time where I would like a visual representation of somebody's level with as a contact, okay? And then another one is it doesn't have to be just within the Microsoft world, right? We can connect it to Google Street View, like Adnan has done over here. He's actually created a control that it takes the latitude and longitude of an account record and then maps it to Street View and brings you that up in one single control there. So with that, you guys got a bit of a taste of it. Let's go ahead and try to build a PCF. And I can assure you it's a lot easier than it sounds, okay? You got this. Like, so if you're completely new to building out controls, like I was when I first started as well, what are some of the things that I'd like to impart to you is some of the things that I did to actually get up to speed. So I actually hadn't been developing for quite some time, right? So my development skills were getting a little bit rusty. So what I did was I took a quick course on EDX. It's a free course around TypeScript 2, right? Which is the basis of PCF controls, right? And that took about a week to go through in my own time. And that actually gave me a really good foundation so that I understood what I need to do from a coding perspective. And so I would say that would be the mandatory thing that you want to do before you get started. At least brush up on TypeScript 2. And then secondly, once you start to build out more advanced apps, and I'm talking like once you've built out 2 or 3 different apps and you're pretty happy with them, have a look at React, because React's a really good framework. I've got a separate slide that I'm going to talk to you about what React offers you. And then, so the first thing, you've done your TypeScript course, you've understood exactly what you need to do from a coding perspective. Let's get an environment happening on your own computer. So the first thing you need to do is download Node.js, Visual Studio Code, and then finally the Power Apps command line interface, right? And so those links are available. There's really good documentation on Microsoft website on how to get started. So you install those three components, you're ready to go, okay? Now, you can actually start from scratch. You can create all of your own, you can initialize your own libraries, but another person in the community has come up with this great Visual Studio Code extension, and it's called PCF Builder. And I can't recommend this enough. I've only just started playing with it in the last couple of weeks, but it's great because what you could do within Visual Studio Code is I can initialize that library. So it creates a skeleton for me. I can actually build with it. I can actually test with it. I can deploy and I can perform updates, right? So it's actually a really great, it's basically taking what you'll do typically through the command line interface, through the console, and putting it in within Visual Studio Code. So I highly recommend that as a good place to start. So let's go ahead and build a control from scratch. And I'll give you an example of what this looks like. All right, so I've got a text control, right? And as soon as I write some text within there, I want to be able to perform an update. I want to refresh what I'm seeing in my control. And I want it to pulse. I want it to animate. I want it to grow and get people's attention, okay? So it's now pulsing. All of the code, source code is available online. You can download it, have a look at it later. But I'm going to walk you through what it takes to actually build this. And it's actually really, really simple. So when you first create your PCF library, it's going to give you a number of files in here. And so let me break down what these files are. And the starting point for all of your code that controls all the actions and the updates is within this control file, right? So this is a TypeScript file here. I'll walk through each one of these individually. And then just like if you're sending a parcel and you have a manifest of things that are in that parcel, it describes the contents of that parcel. We also have a manifest for our control that describes our control and all of the things that this control has, okay? So the resources and so on. And then talking about resources, you might be able to add, you might want to add your own resources. So you may have a preview image, right? So when you add a control, you want a quick preview of what this control actually does for me. So it gives the user some idea. And then you may have a style sheet if you want to control the style and the colors and the branding and the pulsing and all those sorts of things, okay? So let's start with the manifest file, right? Our shipping log, if you like. So the first part of this, you can see it's an XML structure here. You have at the top the properties of that control. What's the namespace of that control? What does this control do? What is the name? What is the display name that you want to see when you add it to a Power App? Okay, so that's basically the control properties. Next, you want to define what are the inputs for my control. In this case, the most important thing to note here is it's actually just a text field. It's a single line of text, right? And it's bound to data and it's required, okay? It's a mandatory field, I have to supply it, all right? So they're my input fields. And then within the resources section, I can define what is the path to my control file, so index.ts, and then also what are the resources I want to add. So I might want to say, add that CSS file for styling and branding, and then I may have some translation sheets and so on, right? You can add controls, resources under here. So let's start with that control file. You've initialized your library. It comes with a number of methods within this file, okay? And one of the methods, the most important one, I think, is the init method. The init method defines all of the things that the user is going to see. And so let's break this down. So this is the control at the bottom here. It's very simple. It basically has a div as a container, and then it's wrapped around an inner div that pulses in and out every 1.8 seconds, okay? And then we've got an anchor link, right? So that's a text that you see in the middle, right? So what does that look like from a coding perspective? I say, I want to create an element. I want it to be a div. That's my outer div. I want to give it a class name. I want to say it's the box. Then I want to create my second div here, right? And I wanted to give it the class name of animated pulse. And then lastly, I've got the anchor. So you can see it's top down. It's very, very simple. It's from the top to the bottom. I've created 1 div, 2 divs, 3 divs, and an anchor. Okay. And then I append it to the container. Container is an actual input variable of INIT, right? So if you bind something or you append it to container, it's going to display upon creation of this, upon execution of this method. All right. So pretty straightforward so far, hopefully. We wanted to do something once we update. There's no point just creating something and displaying it once. You want it to be able to say, when I create something and I change a value, if I change this string value, I want this message to also change. So the first thing we want to do is get that value. If I detect a change, it's going to execute update view, right? So part 1 is let's get the value of this. So all it is getting the parameter from there. I've called this parameter notification message in my manifest file, and I want to get the raw value. I want to assign it to a variable called value. Next, what I want to do is based on this value, if it's empty, I don't want to show anything here. If it's not empty, I want to actually make it visible, right? So I set the attribute of this box div to visible. So now it's visible, okay? And then what I'll do is I want to set the value, right, that we've got in here into that inner anchor element that I created earlier, the text. That's pretty much it. Essentially, that's down to like half a dozen lines of code. So, okay, so we've got the display happening. We wanted to actually do something, okay? So there was a reason why I gave these classes, these elements class names. And that is because I was actually going to create some CSS class files here, and one is animated. So that actually controls the animation behind it, okay? And the second thing is I want to define that pulse, right? And I want to say I want to make the duration 1.8 seconds. So as soon as it takes on this CSS styling, it actually controls the visual behavior of this element here. So now it's pulsing. So pretty straightforward, right? You can substitute that with different colors. If you want to say, make an update and want to change the color of it, whatever you like, right? Your imagination is the only limitation of what you can do here. So that's it. Your control is built. You literally have written out your entire control. What you want to do next is then deploy it, okay? So deployment is really, really simple. I mean, if you use Dinesh's extension, you can actually compile and deploy from within Visual Studio Code. Otherwise, open up a command line and you type in the following. So pack, solution, add reference, and the path to your control name. Right, this is all documented. You don't need to remember this. You can find it all online. But basically, that's how you package it, right? And then once we've actually defined what that package looks like, we want to go ahead and generate a solution file. So basically a couple of commands here, and that's ms build, and that actually generates for you a zip file. If you guys have come from the Dynamics world, that's the solution file, okay? So you basically just import it through your solution customization area, and you import it as you would any other solution. Very, very simple. Just upload it directly in there, and it's automatically available. Okay, so after you've actually compiled it, you've deployed it into your environment, you want to use it. Okay, the first thing you want to do is you want to use it. So how do you do that? Now, this is where the manifest file is really cool, because I said before my control was available to a single line of text, right? So the Power App already knows that if you want to, if you're opening up a text field, it's going to present you a list of controls that are available to you, and you'll automatically see your control added to one of the available ones that you can choose from. And here I've got notification pulsing. So I'm going to say, I'm going to change that. I'm going to use my control instead of the out of the box text control. So I'm going to click on notification pulsing. Then it's going to ask me, where do I want to run it, on web, phone, or tablet, right? So I just select that. That's it. You're live, right? You got your control coded, built, deployed, and now running on your environment. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And then, you know, that basically this is what it looks like at the end of the day. Once you've actually deployed it onto a particular form, you can see here. Now I'm going to do my update. Okay, so as soon as I tab off that, once I finish typing this up, it's going to take that update, that raw value, apply it to there, and then the CSS continues the animation. Right, so pretty straightforward. I mean, that's probably the simplest control that you could build at the moment, but it's enough to sort of get you started. And I'd highly recommend just playing with some ideas and having a look at some of the things other people have done on the PCF gallery. So now that you've built your first control, maybe you want to get more sophisticated with this. I've seen some controls that look like entire single page applications, right? Think Facebook or Gmail, something like really complex. And I'm like, how do they do that? How do they, because my code will just turn into spaghetti if I try to do it in JavaScript and TypeScript alone, right? Thankfully, there are libraries that can help you do that and make sense of it all, okay? And one of those libraries is React, okay? So it's actually React actually came from Facebook, but it's maintained by the community, right? So it's a really good application that basically streamlines that whole development process of a really complex app. And it does this because it uses this top-down approach. You think of a HTML page, you have your header, you have your body. Within your body, you have like H1 for your header tags, and then you've got a div, and then you've got elements within that div, and then you start going into child levels and stuff like that. So that's actually a top-down approach, and that's the approach that React uses. And the reason why it works so well is because if you make a change at a child level, it doesn't ripple all the way up and break everything else with it if you were to make a change anywhere else by, you know, straight HTML. So that's the advantage. You're forced into thinking of things you're breaking problems into smaller chunks, and they are the elements that form your application. And that's why React works really, really well. So you could take a button, you could create a React button, and then you could redeploy that over and over and over again, right? So it encourages reuse at the same time. And because you're building a logical model of what it looks like, the React library will automatically compile that up, okay, and detect just the things that changes, and then just render that change. So it improves performance at the same time. So it's faster rendering all the way around. I mean, this isn't meant to be a React course, right? And hopefully you'll be able to take that React course and sort of see for yourselves what React offers. Now, a lot of the things that you do within the application is around when things change within one part of your control. So I type a text in there, and it actually wants to affect a number of other changes within there. And that's known as a life cycle. Now, you could say, okay, on update view, I want this to happen like you saw in my example here. Or you could actually use the lifecycle within React to help you achieve the same thing. And there are actually a number of phases. You've got the mounting phase where I say, I'm about to deploy this particular button, okay? So before I want to deploy that button, I want to actually initialize a number of things. So maybe I need to make a connection out to Graph API, like we saw Tay's example, right? And then maybe we want, just before it mounts, we want to be able to send some information back. And then when it mounts, that's called the render method. I want to actually display that. And then once it's finished mounting, I want to do something else. It's a life cycle, right? Now you can understand this is a full program now. And then you've got updating. So once you've actually rendered it, if it detects a change, what do I want to do with it, right? So you can say, once again, that has a life cycle. It's about to update. You can actually refresh the display, right? And once it's finished refreshing the display, you might want to do something else. And then finally, you have the unmounting phase. Maybe you need to close off connections, right? During the unmounting phase, we're no longer interested in that button anymore. I'm gonna unmount that button, right? And then I want to actually clean out all of the connections I've made to Azure. Okay, so that's where the unmounting phase happens. So it's important to know that there is a life cycle to applications, and you can have granular control at every single step of that life cycle, making your programming a lot more streamlined, right? So that's pretty much all I want to say in terms of React. I don't want to bombard you too much there. What I want to introduce you to next is I've got some updates, you know, from my dear friend Hemant at Microsoft. Okay, now he leads the development team behind PCF, the command line interface team. Also is another team within there that support him. So props to all those guys. Now, the idea behind this is where the future investment of PCF is. It's going to give you the power of choice between having low code, like we're used to, as well as having that pro code experience, right? Under one umbrella. So together, we're a lot better together. So pro dev and low code together, working hand in hand. You can see that if you've got a good use case to build a control and you can actually deploy it to your citizen developers and they can use it themselves. So it's actually really uniting the two fronts. And then next, we talked a little bit about having PCFs on portals. Right now, it's sort of, if you've got sort of read-only type cases, it's a good way to actually get a control on there. But incrementally, they're going to start building more and more features and capabilities within PCF on portals. All right, so such as being able to drop a PCF from the portal maker experience directly onto a web page. So that'll be really exciting to see. I can't wait to get stuck into that. And then you've got more investments going into the alignment between Canvas apps and other PCF controls like model and so on to have the same experience throughout, right? I gave you an example before, the app that the component that I built and I deployed on model, it gave me options for web and tablet and all those sorts of things. We want to have sort of parity on Canvas world as well, rather than just here's an app and that's pretty much it, right? So having more alignment, there's going to be more investments in there, making that experience, more seamless. And then also Teams is really just taking over the world. I mean, we're doing so much remote stuff by Teams, like even right now, Teams, Power Apps is now on Teams. DataFlex Pro announcement came out. That means they automatically can build Power Apps today. How do we make use of PCF controls within Teams? And a good example is that I like to run Teams in dark mode, right? So I apply a theme to it. I want my components to automatically update based on the fact that the user is actually using a different theme. They're using a dark theme. So I might be able to update my CSS accordingly and change the styling based on what their theme is. To be able to get theme information from Teams is going to be important in the future. And then another advantage is if you've ever embedded a Power App within Teams, you could see that it works really, really well, like a Canvas app within there. And that's because all of the controls that are native to Microsoft Power Apps, the out-of-the-box ones, are already built on the PCF. So that means all of that infrastructure is already in place. Okay, so that means all your typical actions you expect to see on any of the other, like Canvas mode, and that will automatically be available to you on Teams as well. So looking forward to building PCF on Teams. That'll be the next big thing. So just as I wrap up, I know I've been gone for a while now, I just want to leave you with a few resources. Okay, so these are some hyperlinks that you can go to get more information to get started. Okay, so it's really good information that the community and Microsoft have put together, right? So these hyperlinks will take you to all those places. So if you get a chance, go in there, check it out, build something, let me know, tag me on LinkedIn so I can sort of spread the word as well. So thanks very much for listening to me, guys. And yeah, I wish you all the best in your PCF journey. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Andrew, for a wonderful session.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, Andrew. This is Naveen here.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
No worries. That's okay. Any questions at all, just type in the chat or come off mute and I'll answer them.
So we don't have any queries in the chat window. Whoever has any queries and want to ask, they can please unmute themselves and they can ask over here.
So we have one query, I guess, from Rohit.
Yeah.
What
Yes.
takes to published? Yeah. So you want to take it up?
Yeah, sure. No worries. So there's actually a submit link on PCF Gallery, right? And then Guido will pick that up and then he'll publish it directly on there. And then the other thing is, if you've got a GitHub account, make sure you include the link to your GitHub as well if you want to share the source on it. That way it's therefore available.
Well, if there are no further queries, what would I guess there is an announcement that Vivek needs to do. So Vivek, if you have an announcement to be done, can you please make it?
Thank you, Andrew. It was very wonderful session and insightful as well. Very new things which we come to know how quickly we can go and build the first PCF control. We'll surely try the one which you showed over here. I think everyone will do that because it was mentioned very well over there. Now, guys, we have an announcement. We are going to get into another kind of era, another initiative which we are taking up in CHAMPS, that is empowering the students. For which, what we are going to do, we are going to go to the universities or colleges, and we are going to explain them what we are, what we do, or what Microsoft and all business applications are all about. And we expect you all, means whoever are interested, to get into their kind of colleges, because everyone has gone through some universities, colleges, and have their respective uh, connections over there. So you can also get involved into this particular initiative, so that we can go over there, we can explain student about their career growth and all of the things, as well as what we do and how Microsoft Dynamics or a power platform can improve their future scope into industry and kind of things. So that's what we are doing. So Prashant, Deepesh, we and all other leads in CHAMPS are taking this initiative, and we also welcome you all, whoever wants to get part of this particular event or kind of initiative. Please join us over there. And thank you, Andrew, once again for your wonderful session. Over to Kuldeep.
That's wonderful, Vivek. Thank you so much for the update. Well, if you guys can see my screen, we have
One thing I missed, Kuldeep. Guys, like we are doing this for Mumbai, we have already done these kind of user groups for Hyderabad as well as Indore earlier. We in coming weeks we are going to do these kind of events in Delhi, Gurgaon, NCR as one. Then we have a Pune, Bangalore, and Chennai in pipeline. Please be with us. There are always different sessions. Not all the sessions are same, so you will get always new things to learn up from the experts like Andrews, which we always call up. Okay, and please do join us and give the same response which you are continuously giving us throughout all these kind of events. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. With that said, if you guys can see my screen, we have a wonderful sponsor with us for this event, and thank you, Dynamicity, for sponsoring this meetup program. So they are a Microsoft Dynamics and Power Platform company, and they implement, upgrade, manage services, and do a lot of training programs as well. I guess it's this is the one from Deepesh, and yeah, we thank you, Deepesh, for sponsoring this as Dynamicity. Deepesh and Vivek, I guess, yeah. So with that, we move ahead, and we again would like you to see how to connect to the D365 CHAMPS. There are a lot of mediums in which you can connect to us: LinkedIn, Twitter, Kaizala, and here is the Kaizala QR code also, which you can scan and get connected to us. Be a part of this wonderful community, and yeah. This is the QR code, and we encourage all the speakers to register for the speaking sessions. Once you register via this QR code, you can fill up the form, and then we'll get your requests. We'll streamline post we receive your requests for speaking, and we'll put up and line up your meetups as well. And that's about it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, there are two more questions before we end it, because I think we've got at least 3 to 5 minutes left. Andrew, would you like to take two questions? They're pretty quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Swaroop actually asked that how can we use adaptive cards in PCF?
Right, okay. That's a really good question. So adaptive cards in Teams, I think I'm not sure if that's currently available, because that seems to be more of a Teams features. Yeah. I have seen something very similar on the PCF gallery. It might be worthwhile having a look at what people have already done around adaptive cards. So sorry, I don't have the answer to that right now.
Yeah.
Actually, there might be an example of adaptive cards on the PCF documentation website. I'll try to find it.
Sure. And I was
I'll
actually
do a search. Yep.
Yeah, I was actually thinking it's kind of independent of a control. Like you can just use an adaptive card.
Yeah, potentially. I think one of the guys from Microsoft did something around adaptive cards, but I'll have to.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. So this is Deepesh. Yeah, guys, like there is something around PCF Gallery, as Andrew said, and you can go and have a check there. It's a great starting point. I am aware that certain more people are trying to put more PCF around the same kind of a principle on PCF Gallery. So if it's not there yet, it will be coming around in a few weeks from now. And we will share to you documentation around, right? So that's
Andrew has actually posted a link. So Swaroop, you can click on that and check it out. The next question is from Rahul. Does PCF needs any licensing to use?
No, aside from your either Dynamics or Power Apps license, you don't need any special licensing to use it.
Cool. I hope that answers your questions, Swaroop and Rahul. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Deepesh.
Thank you. Thank you for your queries. Thank you, Andrew, for taking them up. Prashant, for summing it up. I just want to take a minute to thank you, Andrew. Some of the things you have shared here, I believe, are being shared to the open community for the first time, especially the updates you were talking about. Thanks for bringing all that wonderful information to all the techies out here. And we really enjoyed your session. We would want you to keep coming and speaking to us. Thanks a lot to come at CHAMS. And that's what this particular community is about, by the techies, to the techies, and of the techies.
Yeah. No, it's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. Thanks for organizing. This is great.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It was fantastic.
Thank you, Prashant, for helping with all the things on the background. And just as adding it, whatever Vivek and even Kuldeep talked about Empower, Prashant is using all his great skills, and Chance is always the advantage of using his great skills in terms of, videos and everything he does. There's a great video being released, which Prashant is working on, and it will be coming soon for Empower. August will not only see all the meetups that Vivek talked about, it will also see Empower coming to fruition finally. And that's our education initiative. We really want to empower the citizen developer in all the universities across. Please make sure you're also contributing there. It's a great way to learn as well. And Prashant, now we are all super excited and waiting for that video whenever it will be coming out. All right. And that's a thank you and from my end.
Take care, guys. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Have a great weekend, and same to all of you. Thank you for taking out time, coming out on a Saturday for learning on Power Platform. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, Kuldeep. Thank you to all the other leads who are on the call.
Thank you, Deepesh. Thank you, Prashant. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Vivek.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks everyone for attending. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Prashant, please.
Thank you. Thank you, team.
Prashant, you can stop recording.